We are more than 12 weeks into the 2023 NFL season, and a lot has transpired since the first game of the year, which was a game between the Lions and Chiefs. There's been a lot that's taken place over the past few months, and the best of the NFL season will take place in a few short weeks. Some teams have exceeded expectations through the first 12 weeks, while others have not lived up to expectations. That's natural, and that's why the games are played. But the 2023 NFL season has taught us a lot, and there have been some things that have happened that will change how the league approaches roster construction and how they approach competing for championships moving forward. There is a lot to dive into in today's video, and some of the points are ones you may not initially think of. But there is a lot to dive into in today's video, and there will be several situations we dive into, and without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video with what is probably the biggest thing the 2023 NFL season has taught us or reaffirmed, and it's that backup quarterbacks matter. We've seen a startling amount of quarterbacks go down for the year with season-ending injuries, and time after time, the team has no viable backup option. The Jets had Aaron Rodgers go down for the year after just 4 snaps, and they had former number 2 overall pick Zach Wilson start for most of their games before benching him in favor of Tim Boyle. Zach's time as the starting quarterback in 2023 went about as expected, and for Zach specifically, this situation was terrible, as this was supposed to be a learning year for him where he essentially sits back and watches how a future Hall of Fame quarterback does it. But the unthinkable happened, and the Jets were thrust right back into starting Zach, and at times being the punching bag for the rest of the NFL. And what particularly stinks for Zach is this was never supposed to be his 3rd season. Everyone knew he wasn't the answer, and the Jets punted on every opportunity to go get a true backup quarterback. Whether that was Jacoby Brissett, Jameis Winston, or whoever, starting Zach Wilson was always going to be a problem, and it was. And Tim Boyle is even more of a problem as he is not close to an NFL caliber quarterback. But the Jets are not the only team to run into this situation, and they won't be the last to run into this situation. Anthony Richardson, the Colts rookie quarterback and ultimately top 5 draft pick, went down for the year, and what happened? They had Gardner Minshew ready to go, and a player who will put you in a position to compete. And believe it or not, Indy is quietly top 10 in the NFL in points per game, and they have, again, very quietly, put up 27 or more points in 4 of their last 5 games. I will go ahead and say no, the Colts are not going to win the Super Bowl because they have Gardner, but the point is they are in playoff contention as we enter the final month and a half of the year because they didn't sit back and do nothing when it came to the backup quarterback position. The Cincinnati Bengals, on the other hand, are in a pretty bad situation with Jake Browning as their quarterback, and they're sitting at 5-6 through 11 games, and just being honest, I would be surprised if they win 2 more games this year. And that's a shame because their roster is loaded and they're in compete for a Super Bowl now mode. Now, this opens up a different discussion of, well, what do you do to prepare for the thing nobody wants to think about, and that's your quarterback going down and missing extended time, especially when you factor in the money already being allocated for not only the starting quarterback, but now the backup quarterback too. And I think it starts with investing a 4th or 5th round pick every 2 years, and in some cases every 3 years depending on the guy, to prepare for the inevitable. The Ravens found a great backup quarterback in Snoop Huntley, and it's actually pretty insane that this team nearly beat the Bengals in the playoffs at Paycor Stadium with Snoop Huntley as their starting quarterback. That speaks volumes to Baltimore preparing for Lamar missing time or having a good backup plan in case the unthinkable happens. But can you say the same with Cincinnati? No. Could Jake Browning nearly lead the Bengals to a win over the Ravens in the playoffs? Absolutely not. And this isn't just a Bengals thing either, as Blaine Gabbert is Patrick Mahomes' backup, and unless the Chiefs' defense holds the opposing team to 14 points or less, it would be the same result. There's a reason there's only 32 starting quarterback jobs in the world, and the position is the most difficult position in all of sports, but I think we're going to see an overreaction this offseason with teams spending a lot more than you may think on backup quarterbacks. Not to say Jameis Winston, who is a free agent at the end of this year, by the way, will get $20 million per year, for example, but I would be surprised if his salary of $4 million in 2023 isn't at least doubled in 2024. And I think teams will do anything they can to move money around with players they already have to ensure they have a solid backup option next year. Super Bowl windows are so short to begin with that for a team like the Bengals to lose an entire year in the Joe Burrow era is devastating. devastating. Yes, Joe and Jamar will be around for the long haul, but guys like Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, and many others won't. They all won't leave this offseason, of course, but being forced to punt on a season due to not being prepared is something NFL teams will react to and probably overspend on in the 2024 offseason. We'll use a few examples for the next one here, and it's that you can never have enough beef on either side of the line. Sam Howell has been sacked 55 times in 12 games in 2023 and is close to the pace David Carr was for his rookie season, in which David was sacked 76 times, at least for a 16-game season, as with the 17th game, Sam is projected to be sacked a grand total of 78 times. And when you're in a division with teams like the Eagles and Cowboys, you know, teams that can really get after the quarterback, your game plan entering the draft or the offseason should be simple. It should revolve around how do we let our quarterback survive a full 17-game season and reasonably give him a chance to win games. This has improved for the Commanders over the last 5 games, and it's still not good by any means, but in weeks 1 through 7 of 2023, Sam was sacked no less than 4 times in a game, and that was only in one game against the Broncos, meaning in the other 6 games, Sam was sacked at least 5 times, and through the first 7 weeks, Howell was on pace to be sacked 97 times over the course of a 17-game season. And when you're watching your team play, there is nothing more frustrating than watching your quarterback get drilled without getting a chance because your offensive line is that bad. And when there's an opportunity to draft a guy in the first round that will set the tone and kick ass and take names later, you almost have to take him because he's going to be keeping your quarterback's jersey clean. And with how many dominant pass rushers there are in today's era, having a competent offensive line has always been important, but it's even more emphasized now. And another player that's taken a beating over the course of the 2023 season is Panthers quarterback Bryce Young. He's been sacked 40 times in the 10 games he's played for an average of 4 per game, meaning he would be on pace to be sacked 68 times during his rookie year. We went in depth with the Panthers video that was released a little over a week ago with different offensive linemen and specifically with pressures allowed per player, but 4th round guard Chandler Zavala has been awful. He has a pass blocking grade of 7.1 for the entire season per PFF, and in week 3 against the Seahawks, he allowed 13 pressures in one game, and in that game, registered a pass blocking grade of 0. The whole situation in Carolina is a train wreck, and we know that, but this part of the video doesn't apply to bad offensive line play. It also applies to good offensive line play and maulers in the trenches who slow down the opposing pass rush. Sacks aren't strictly an offensive line stat, as there's times where quarterbacks walk right into sacks or simply hold onto the ball for far too long, but when you have a bad offensive line, there's times you take having a good offensive line for granted, or at least you think back to the times as a fan when you had a good offensive line. And the reality of the NFL right now is there are more good pass rushers than there are good offensive linemen. There's simply a higher quantity of pass rushers, and it's a dogfight every single week for offensive lines. And for reference, there were 3 pass rushers with 80 or more pressures in 2022. 3. They were Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, and Max Crosby, and through 12 weeks in 2023, if these guys keep their pace, we're looking at 11 pass rushers that would reach the 80 pressures mark. There are already 5 guys with 60 or more pressures, and most of them have played just 11 games, meaning they will have 6 more games to accumulate less than 20 pressures. And with this many good pass rushers in the NFL right now, and with the fact that good offensive linemen rarely get traded, yes, Laramie Tunsil is of course an exception, I think we're going to see 5 if not 6 tackles off the board in the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft. And I think this is the big thing the 2023 NFL season has emphasized. The 2023 season hasn't emphasized good line play is needed because we obviously knew that, but it's emphasized that if you're going to be a serious contender, you better have your offensive line figured out and then some. Pick any contending team that you think can win a Super Bowl this year, and they more than likely have 2 good options that can get after the quarterback. That's been a trend over the past few years, and with great talents like Olu Fashanu and Joe Alt in the 2024 draft, both of these guys will probably be taken in the top 6 or 7 picks. Next up is one thing that NFL franchises confirm every year, and it's how much coaching matters. In a league full of the best and most conditioned athletes that each sport has to offer, how do you get an advantage? You hire good coaches that know how to fully maximize talent and know how to utilize their players to the best of their ability. And we are heading into the month of December, and a Justin Herbert-led team has as many wins as a team that's been quarterbacked by Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, and Tommy DeVito. I'm sure we probably all feel the same way about Brandon Staley and have for probably about 10 months, but this point cannot be emphasized enough. Even for as bad of a start as the Broncos had in their first 6 games, which included getting beat by the Josh McDaniels-led Raiders, the Ron Rivera-led Commanders, getting absolutely pantsed by the Dolphins, and getting beat by Zach Wilson, this team had every right to basically fold and say, we're done. They were 1-5, and in the AFC, starting out that bad would be a death sentence for most teams. But since the 1-5 start, they've won 5 straight, and one of those wins was not just a win over the Big Bad Chiefs, but a double-digit win over the Big Bad Chiefs. And after the first time they played Kansas City, Denver looked ugly. Russ finished the game just 13-22 for 95 yards and had 2 interceptions, and after that game, it was easy to say the Broncos should fire sale and get rid of a bunch of players, and especially Jerry Jeudy, for example, who was getting into it publicly with former star receiver Steve Smith, and basically gives Sean Payton a pass for the 2023 season, and let him start over in 2024. And yes, I was also saying those things as it was hard to find a reason to buy in with the Denver Broncos when their only win to that point was a come-from-behind win over the Bears. But internally, Denver didn't stop believing, and I know the 2022 season for them was about as ugly as it could get from, well, really every standpoint, but having Sean Payton help right the ship and having the defense create turnovers at an unreal rate over the past month has flipped their season around. But you don't just win games because you create turnovers, and this is where coaches make such a big difference between wins and losses. And another example of this would be during the Ravens and Chargers game on Sunday night in Week 12. I picked the Ravens to win despite the Chargers coming off of back-to-back losses, including the Quentin Johnston drop game in Green Bay. And a big reason for this is because of how much I trust John Harbaugh over Brandon Staley. And a lot of the time when it's a projected close game like this in picking winners, I will often choose the coach I trust more. And another example of this will be in Week 13 when I choose the Lions to beat the Saints. I trust what Dan Campbell is doing from a long-term standpoint and have next to zero confidence in Dennis Allen. And from a sheer talent standpoint of what's on the roster, I don't think you can name any teams that are underachieving more in 2023 than the Chargers and Bucks. Since Tampa's Week 5 bye, they are just 1-6 with their lone win coming over a rookie quarterback in Will Levis, and the Titans will probably be selecting in the top 10 of the 2024 NFL Draft. And I think we're in an era of football where owners prioritize winning now over anything else, as in winning now, not just winning down the road, and they won't let coaches have the rebuilding effect that they used to let them have. The room for error is so little that owners and fan bases don't want to wait around to see if a coach can figure it out. The grass is greener on the other side mindset is going to be used in a big way this offseason when a lot of coaches are inevitably let go. But I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as only about 28% of people watching are subscribed, and it makes a big difference. And until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.